there should be something in place to where you have to have a park that you play at that has netting going from, all the way down to the line, to have the safety of people.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for coming back to another recording of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. I'm Jordan Scott. I'm here with Brianna Ludwig. We're in the middle of June. We're excited to bring another conversation about foul ball safety now. We're going to introduce our interesting guest host in a few minutes. It started back in 2019 when I saw something disturbing on the morning news, and it was a child getting hit by a line drive baseball. This was like graphic moment when you saw something very disturbing, and it was like, what are we doing about this as a baseball society at the time? And would there be any changes? And I started paying attention to the issue. I connected with a lawyer friend of mine who connected with me, this guy by the name of Brendan. And Brendan has been with me since about that time of this morning news episode. I started Foul Ball Safety Now, and most people can see the evolution, if that's the right word, of foul ball safety now from 2019 to the present time at the website Foul Ball Safety Now. We've been chronicling and documenting and putting out letters to people, letting them know that the status quo is unacceptable and we need to do more changes. My work has been involved with collecting interviews with not only people that have been affected by the balls, but it's also been the baseball players themselves. Brendan and I probably reached out to probably 300 or 400, mostly men, who played professional baseball at some point in their careers and may have owned or still do own schools or academies or are private instructors. And many of those guys, I would say about 30 guys, have done long form interviews with Brendan and I and definitely discussed all of their own inner turmoil with us, which is exciting because they knew it was inevitable from them playing, that it was not a matter of if the next person would be crushed. It was when, and why wasn't this ever a real topic of discussion, and where was the change or the changes that have come along? Now, I have some research, not a lot, on the MLB Players Union, who up until a couple of years ago only represented MLB players. Now they represent their rank and file, maybe 4 or 5 times larger. A couple of years ago, it was only 30 MLB teams that was part of the MLB Players Union. Now, add another 120 teams to it. And if we're talking 30 guys per club, more or less, maybe 900 MLB players at a time, and then another 120 teams times 30. I think the rosters are a little smaller, but let's just say 30. So that we're talking 3,600 is a huge addition to the rank and file for sure. It supposedly had come up in collective bargaining, MLB Players Union suggesting more nets. I really would want to know why the MLB Players Union in collective bargaining just didn't draw a line in the sand and say, no, 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 our guys will not be hitting balls at babies anymore. They unfortunately have not done that. So I do have to put them in the same place as in no call to action that have prevented the ongoing injuries. It's 2026. Bats, broken bats, and regular bats are still making their way into seats. In 2025, during the playoffs, it's on the website, the T-Mobile ballpark in Seattle, where a broken bat goes over the net that could have speared your heart. As the announcer is showing it on replay going into commercial, he screams, "Yikes, look out." These are broken bats that are coming into seats in 2025. We also have a video of something this past spring, maybe a month and a half ago. I think it was Yankees Blue Jays at Yankee Stadium. I'm not sure if we put it up yet on the website, where you clearly hear the announcer saying, "The bat just went over the net into the seats." What is happening or not? in 2026 in professional baseball, billions of dollars, who have the power to hire the right architects, engineers, and designers and cut it out. Cut it out already. No lessons learned. Brendan and I are working on a case. We're producing our first book about a little known story almost 10 years ago. A bat goes into the seats, a major league game. Bat goes into the seats. It's on ESPN. We have the video. You see the mother turning as the baby is on her strap holder. And that baby, from the moment they were hit, they were all alone. No team doctor. And 7, 8 years later, was with that team. And it was more like the opposite, where they were alone at the emergency room, had to find their own treatment for the baby. Baby had a heavy duty head trauma from the bat, and MLB and the team put up a big fight, and the case ended up being settled. The reason why we know about this is because we were contacted. A major law firm called me, and we helped them prepare for their case. Brendan was probably doing 40, 50 hours worth of work. This was last summer before the trial. Unfortunately, when people learn about this, when people are going to see the depositions that we're able to pull from the public record, everyone's going to scratch their head. MLB is definitely not a decent society. They allow this to happen, and 10 years later, there's no lessons to be learned. So we're going to kind of thread that all together. I just want to bring people up to speed, and everyone should pay attention. And we're starting to get involved with a little bit more on what's happening on all levels, because it's throughout the MLB and professional baseball and the indie leagues and stuff. But, a little over a year ago, a Queens college student found me and he said, "Hey, Jordan, we're worried about the balls going over the nets in Queens." I'm like, "Yeah, there's an elementary school going over the sides of and all these ballparks are very small. They all seem to be connected to neighboring parking lots and fields." Another lawyer called us in Modesto, California, and said, "Hey, Jordan, help us out with our lawsuit. A woman we're working with," this was an affiliate of the Mariners at the time in 2023. "She's outside in the parking lot and she got hit in the head. This is very predictable. There are one or many balls in 3 hours going over on the pavement or hitting the car window or hitting people. This is one or many balls in 3 or 4 hours. Not acceptable." So we will continue talking and trying to stare at the issue as we see it and justifiably sound the alarm bells and beat the drum. Brianna, how are you today?
Doing great, Jordan. This is a very important conversation, so I'm glad that we get to have it today. Without further ado, I'd love to welcome on our guest host for the day. He is the Director of Athletics at a sports academy in Marin County, California. Welcome, Jerome Sadler.
Hello, hello. How you doing? Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Jerome. We're excited to you bring the inquiry to us.
Of course,
What's
yes.
happening? What's happening?
Nothing much. I love this topic. I think it's very important. And I love what you have going on here on this platform. Just ready to, get started and talk about this topic so we can hopefully get this addressed one day and we can just stop all this nonsense of people turning a blind eye to it. That's how I view it, in my opinion.
We appreciate that.
So my previous experience, I'm a former Division I baseball player,
Mhm.
playing baseball my entire life. I grew up in San Francisco, California, born and raised. Obviously, we don't have like fencing and netting like that as well. So that was pretty much my first time experiencing that foul ball situation was being a little kid. Going
Uh-huh.
into college while playing throughout, like playing SEC schools and such, usually those schools have many fans, right? It's like minor league baseball type vibe, with that many fans in the stands and SEC ball. And then experiencing at the plate, myself hitting off a foul ball and, hitting someone in the shoulder, it just rocks you, standing
Uh-huh.
in the batter's box, so you can't really focus because you're so worried about, that person that got hit with the foul ball. Most of the parks, I would say even in college baseball, don't have those nettings going all the way, down the line. For me, I just always just it always just kind of puzzled me as to why, it doesn't go all the way down the foul line, to
Sure. Sure.
make the safety for everyone because it easily can. Like
Sure.
it easily can, so I don't
Yeah.
understand, what the problem is. You like you're saying, from these past decades of just seeing people being hit, even babies, like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just it's catastrophic, so, I think all of the leagues, especially from, I would say, JUCO ball, from whatever level you're playing at, JUCO ball to all the way up to, to the show. There should be something in place to where you have to have a park that you play at that has netting going from, all the way down to the line, to have the
Sure.
safety of people.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And the three of us, it's good that we could be passionate, certainly from our experiences, maybe from my research and you as a player. That coming together could certainly bring an inspiration to outside architects, engineers, and designers who say, I have a solution. I have a solution. I have a solution, or they have a solution, 3 of them together. So, it's by them doing that, by us connecting our energy, our passion, it will tell them that business as usual 2026 is not working. Now, if the powers that be are continually putting out this half measures or these, upgrades, who's to say that it's a solution? And ultimately, that's what we want.
Mhm.
We want solutions. We want Brianna and her child to know exactly where to park in places like Modesto. She
Right.
has a child of 2. She should not be going to the parking lot thinking there are strings and conditions attached. Would you agree?
Yeah,
She
for
should
sure.
know that she should be able to park the car and realize there's no strings and conditions attached. I think most parents of 2-year-olds are probably thinking there were always no strings or conditions attached. But
Right.
in reality, we're able to demonstrate that's still not the case in 2026.
Yeah.
And when we going to finally get out of this place of lack of information that is reality, one or many balls. How many balls do you think during batting practice and game during 3, 4 hours are hitting pavement window? Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it more than 1? I think it's definitely more than 1.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's definitely a lot.
So
Um,
1 or many balls is fair to say
mhm.
are hitting pavement and
Right.
window and potentially human beings like it did in Modesto,
Yeah.
where we got contacted by the lawyer. So
Right.
these are hundreds of fields, and we just sampled D1, 2, and 3. We haven't even tapped into the college scene as much as maybe you've been exposed to. That's only started a little over a year ago when the Queens College student found me. And people can see at Foul Ball Safety now, the Queens College NCAA tab. You'll see from the first letter I wrote that a Queens College student contacted me, whether it was the very end of 24 or the beginning of 25. He
Mhm.
said, "Hey, Jordan, we're worried. There's an elementary school connected to the field or right next door to the field where we play at. The balls are going over the sides. We're worried." And I
Mhm.
wrote, "You're right. Why
Right.
wouldn't you be worried?" And I got a response from the athletic director ASAP, but it was more the obligatory, "We're looking into it."
Right.
And then a student reporter on letter number 4 actually did have the courage and did get a quote from the athletic director.
Mhm.
It's something. And now we contacted the NCAA because after our Google Earth of the 46 fields, we realized all 46 of them either had a connected field or parking lot, and it didn't look like any appearance of nets like at a golf range, way,
Right.
way, way high.
Yeah.
And until you have that, you're gonna keep on with the willy-nilly and the random on a regular basis, not
Right.
acceptable. So we want to just paint the picture of what we're seeing. And I think, by you bringing energy, it's very important because that and our research can have a ripple effect. And we
Mhm.
hope these discussions will inspire that.
So I was the assistant general manager for the San Rafael Pacific's professional baseball club here in Marin County, San Rafael, California, and we play in Albert Park, which Albert Park opened in 1951. A very old throwback type of station. You have the stands are like right behind home plate, and there's just like this huge gating, metal gate going up,
Right?
like in like a half dome kind of way,
Okay.
very old school way. And so that's obviously, to protect the fans and whatnot, but you still get those, those foul balls that, sometimes they go out and they reach because we have a road that's like,
Yes.
I want to say just like maybe like 30 yards away from our like third baseline. So
Okay.
you have cars like constantly, just driving that close, and
Right.
sometimes, it can be like somebody's driving and then all of a sudden a foul ball hits off and then
Yeah.
and then it hits a car that's driving by. Because it has
Yep.
happened. Those things that I was thinking about, as assistant general manager,
Sure.
experiencing another situation like that is like, okay, so like what do I do? Who do I call? I can only do so much. I tell the owner of the club
Right.
and therefore he can either address what I said and take it to the city or
Yes.
not, but
Right.
a lot of these owners are just focused on just the coins. They're
I
just focused on
understand.
making money. Maybe they're not looking at, but in their mind, they're just like, oh, maybe it's just like a one out of like 52 chance or something like that. Somebody will get hit
Right.
like, in a dire way in the stands,
Right.
so they're not thinking like that. They're just thinking about, hey, what's the next dollar? How can we get more butts and seats?
Sure.
That is a major issue. But like you said, I've always thought that, yeah, we can raise the netting,
Mhm.
put it all the way down the line and raise it up just like you do at a golf, I forgot, driving
Uh,
range. There you go.
right. Right. Right.
Put them that, if they
Sure.
can make them that high, we can get them that
Yes.
high.
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
So
And
it's just,
it starts with the conversation. Very important information that you shared. And municipalities, what you were sharing, that you would hope the owner would involve the municipalities. We spoke to somebody recently from a municipality
uh,
who maybe will be one of our next guest hosts. So that will be an interesting discussion. She was very curious as an executive director, either the municipalities, whatever it was, an impressive title. So we're looking forward to her coming on because she'll be able to represent maybe some of the acceptance or resistance that she'll be able to tell me would be the regular response from the municipalities and how to finally get change going. So
right,
that's what we want. I also believe there's private philanthropy out there that would be just to give our guests inspiration to take this on their own. Anything you can pick up on your own from our call and be
mhm,
inspired, we want you to take whatever you can get, and I'll always be around as a resource. But I do believe private folks, once they receive the information that I've collected and understand that baseball players and administrators are also human beings, they don't want to be given the task or the burden of going to play the game they love, knowing that they're compromised as human beings. Their emotions are certainly conflicted. They tell their own parents, mom and dad have to sit in certain places, but maybe they're not telling everybody else. There's a
right,
lot that's we've discovered and people and emotions that even players are wrestling with. I'll give you two quotes that I heard recently because I've had a few of these organized baseball insider calls where I pay organizers to get their colleagues, their buddies in a room together and hoping that they'll have the courage to share their feelings or do something beyond the conference, similar to like what we're doing now. All of our guests have the opportunity to hopefully make some good noise in their neighborhoods. But these particular baseball players, things that I have on my website, I have something up called a new baseball statistic, present traumatic stress disorder. And the
mm,
reason why I phrased it that way is because similar to the Queens College baseball player who shared anxiety about worrying about hitting kids at the elementary school, baseball players that have played the game or still play the game are concerned, and they've given me examples of why they're concerned. And there's a few examples that I have up on the website. I think I can tell you one or two of them right now, or three of them. One guy would say to me, Jordan, every time I swing the bat, I have anxiety because
mhm,
obviously he's concerned that these balls will travel places.
right, right,
Jordan, on kids' night, he may have played professional ball. for a few years, and he said something like, "On kids' night teams, my feelings would really spike because he knew there were more kids in the seats, so
Uh-huh.
he knows that his balls will have consequences."
Uh-huh.
And another guy, which you might relate to, I was really impressed that he would share this with me. He's not currently doing it, but he certainly did do it. He said he would purposely foul off pitches. So, he's waiting for his perfect pitch. He doesn't wanna strike out, and he
Right.
knew his foul balls would definitely have consequences. Now,
Wow.
how as a player doing that, you're shooting them this direction and that direction, as, let's say it was no netting above the third base dugout, and he's a left-handed hitter, and he
Uh-huh.
knows his balls are gonna go, over the dugout or over the down the line where there's no netting. It's a lot, and he was very blunt about it, but he wasn't doing it. Now, is it very hard for a player to acknowledge that as they're in the middle of their day off? Yeah, probably, but I'm trying to offer safe environments for these guys to talk about it. I'd like of course, I want present day players to speak up, but I also want former players who may not be doing it today who could see it a lot clearer, and they know exactly from their own experiences, from what they used to do and what they used to share with their own families. Brendan and I have interviewed more than 30 people. So it's very interesting. We just want to go deeper, but we want solutions and we want young people to play the game free and clear. And that's not shouldn't be such a foreign concept. So we'll keep on going for it.
Right. Yeah, I was for these past 2 years, I've been a
Yes.
high school baseball coach, and I've actually had, calling time, and I've had, kids come up to me and saying, "Coach, like, is that person okay?" Like, from getting hit, from like a foul ball or a player getting hit in the dugout, so,
Mhm.
things of that
Sure.
nature. We play at College of Marin, and
Okay.
what College of Marin has done is that they have extended the netting to go over home plate now. So
Uh-huh.
when the balls tip off, they go right into the net when they go up.
Right.
And we're
Right.
talking about a probably, I wanna say a 30 to 40 yard extension over home
Okay.
plate because the backstop is really big.
Right.
It's a lot
Right.
of space in the backstop, but they have extended that so they're decreasing,
Right.
their foul balls going behind because we have people that are jogging and whatnot, and
Right. Right.
they
Right.
have their headphones on and they can't really hear, like, people saying, "Heads, heads,"
Heads up. Right.
when the
Right.
ball's,
Right.
fouling getting tipped back.
Right.
So,
Right.
in order to stop that, College of Marin has, implemented, they put that net all the way
Mhm.
over, home plate, so it's just like, wow, somebody has actually, taken initiative and
Right.
the college has taken
Right.
initiative to stop that.
Good.
And because they
I'm
under
glad.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
don't wanna be jogging
of
and get hit in
course.
the ball, like, you know? People are, listening. It's
I
just
hope
that
so. And again, I like great improvements, but I'm looking for solutions. And there's billions of dollars on all levels of baseball. So there's definitely solutions at every zip code, even if we're talking thousands upon thousands of fields. All levels of baseball deserve integrity. All levels of baseball, people jogging around them shouldn't have to depend on a heads up and look out. All people that are driving past fields shouldn't worry about a ball bouncing on the freeway. How many of them? It's not one a year. It could be one or more in a few hours. And that's we need to stop that. And independent people like yourself will hopefully be inspired to get the architects, engineers, and designers to step it up and say, if the municipality's not gonna do anything about it, we just learned about this from Science 101, and we live in this zip code, we feel like we need to do something. Truth in baseball safety matters. So we do wanna jumpstart a conversation in all zip codes. Again, I started this 6 years ago, 7 years ago. First 6 years, I was just thinking about the billionaires and the connections to those guys. The 30 MLB owners, the 120 minor league teams. Some of those 30 billionaire owners own a lot of those 120 minor league teams, and then another 49 indie league teams. And I found out it's still 2026. Many of them still don't even have netting past the end of the dugout on the indie league level. MLB certainly kicked the can down the road after that horrific video in 2019. It wasn't until December of 2022, 2 reports in. I had already done reports in 21 and 22. This was the end of 22. 3.5 years after that horrific video, finally Manfred said something. He said something in 2019 about MLB teams doing upgrades after that the little girl got hurt in Houston in 2019. But he didn't say anything about the 120 teams because last I checked, there's still 200-pound men hitting it really hard. I'm doing netting reports in 21, 22, still finding out 40 of 120 still not having netting past end of dugout. And then he makes an announcement in 22. By 2025, all the MLB affiliates, all the minor league teams would have netting extended as further down to the pole as possible. And they did. Most of them did. A few of them did not. But why, if you're making that announcement in 22, are you letting people still come sit in those same places in 23 and 24 and not telling them to stay home at least till 25? So there's still a lot of decency that just never made it to the conference table. So I'm upset about that. It's what's done is done. People can discover on the website. An investigative reporter knows where to find me, and I hope they put together a longer piece on this. But I believe a lot of the baseball writers and broadcasters could have connected the dots to exactly what I'm trying to demonstrate here. But they work for the companies, they work for the teams. It's very hard for them to do, or they look the other way, or a little bit of both. So
What do you think that? Do you think is they're scared of like some type of retaliation?
yeah, I mean, just from what we've seen, Brianna and I reviewing, we're doing a separate inventory of, we're collecting archives. I watch Mets and Yankees on YouTube. We see close calls, we hear announcements, and they always soften the moment with like humor and cotton candy or blame the fan for being not paying attention. Where the last I checked, we're not action figures and superheroes. We really had no business being there to begin with. People can check out Exhibit A1 on the website. It's not the 5-minute video, it's the published report from 2019. And Brendan and I incorporated a lot of very interesting research in 2025. You can almost retrace your steps. If you had gone to games over the last 10 years, you would see that you were sitting in places where balls are going at almost 50% of the time. And obviously, people are going to figure out that MLB's been tracking everything for a decade or two. You know some of those balls were going at 100 miles per hour. You're not gonna like it that you were there with your family. Why the powers that be, even baseball writers and broadcasters are not elaborating on it? I think there's pressure not to upset the apple cart kinda thing, and maybe they tell their own families, as players do, about the best and the safest places to be inside and outside. Unfortunately, no. I mean, I haven't seen any exposés, if you wanna call it that, or an announcer that just is fed up with all the things that maybe we've discovered. They certainly have been exposed to the same things. So, I guess if you find anything, you'll let me know, but I think we're the only one really sustaining the sounds of the justified concerns. So we'll continue doing that.
For me and myself, like, I think that's why I
Yes.
wanted to, definitely, be a part of this because I had always thought that nobody else out here was like concerned about that. But, like really myself, and possibly like, some of my former teammates,
Yes.
but, I remember when I was working at the San Francisco Giants for 2 seasons, the Giants have done a pretty good job at extending the foul ball netting
Mhm.
down the first and third base lines, but there's still like a cutoff, right? It's like, okay, but why didn't you just
Yes,
keep
it's
going?
cut off.
Why
Yeah.
didn't you just keep going? Like
Well,
you're
we're gonna
almost
find
there.
that. Right. Well, we're gonna find that, and again, even if you think it's there, and yes, obviously you see the openings. Brianna and I are finding self-reported injuries just in 2025,
Mhm.
just 45. but that's 45.
Right.
45 videos of people self-reporting their injuries on TikTok and clearly stating from their bruises that are evident and
Oh,
their testimonials that they're never going to another game. Now, did any of these people have lifelong injury from it? Maybe not, but Brendan and I have unfortunately met these people who were children at the time and still children at the time. We met two little girls by the name of Alexis. One was 4 and one was 10. We didn't speak to them till one was 17 and the other one was 20, maybe, starting college. So we talk to them years later. One does have long-term post-neurological issues. Another girl, she was fine. She was at a food concourse. Balls are still making their way over the nets, but when you said if you just saw it further down, you would say they did it, they succeeded, but that's because we don't have all the information we need. The question is, does professional baseball can they show a track record or a legacy of having a sophisticated team of architects, engineers, and designers that were constantly monitoring the situation? Or has it been more like one guy wearing too many hats that's had the responsibility of watching over the situation? I believe, unfortunately, MLB and professional baseball will never be able to show that they had a sophisticated operation of engineers and designers and architects. I believe it's been more like one guy we're doing too many things at the office, and that's not worthy of a billion-dollar organization and our fans' welfare. And that's what we're doing here. This is an open conversation. We're just okay to bring the questions forward, and we will. And I feel like we're all going to learn a lot. And I do think we are still representing the dark ages of 2026 until we can talk in the very near future that there'll be no more entries into the less than 1% injured club. We have to continue beating the drum. I call it the less than 1% injured club because there's probably 100 million fans in professional baseball. There's probably not 100 million fans who've had life altering experiences, but there are thousands upon thousands. And every year, Brendan, Brianna, and I are meeting new people. Just the other day, unfortunately, there was a woman's video that went viral because her friend had the phone on, and people may want to blame the fan, and they still do for having phones and being attentive to their loved ones or the kids playing patty cake. We're not action figures and superheroes. We should be able to do what we want to do within our seating area. We're not meant to pay attention to defend ourselves. So that I think is myth. But again, we just want to have an intelligent conversation, bring up all the sides that haven't been elaborated upon. And we create some kind of call to action within each zip code. And these discussions are very helpful. And you're bringing a lot today. So thank you.
have you looked into the Nippon Professional Baseball Organization? Like, what are they doing? Are they
Mhm.
doing anything out there in Japan?
Mhm.
Regarding this type of situation?
Yeah, Real Sports did something on Japan like in
Mhm.
2016. And at the time, they showed simulators, but they also showed social protocols that were in place, like just to make it more safe, if you will, even graphic video on the scoreboard, which maybe in a little bit of dark humor, showing people like getting carted off in ambulances if they weren't paying attention that it could happen to you, or even having team attendants on every aisle. I thought that was something as the balls would go over the nets and come down. They would tell people maybe put your head somewhere so you don't get hit. Because people get hit with pop-ups. Even just last year in the World Series, the Mary Hart lady who used to be on Entertainment Tonight, her husband, Bert Sugarman, was in the first row at the Dodger game during the World Series, and ball goes up, ball goes down, hit him in the head. And then you could see on every pitch, the team attendants were working on him. And then he ended up staying. So apparently he wasn't seriously injured. But Brianna and I are still collecting things. Oh, so in Japan, Again, I think their social cues and their ways of presenting it is a lot more than we do here. Once we're at the seat, it's already too late. We should have been presented this long before. I think if we were winter after winter after winter, a lot of change would have started happening after every winter. Certainly, after a 14-year-old boy got hit at Dodger Stadium and passed away. A few days later, 1970, you would have thought that every winter, every time they would tell you what happened the year before and what they anticipated the year after. Nobody outside baseball has paid attention to it, unfortunately, and they shouldn't have a free ride MLB, and there should have been oversight or regulation or game plan for people like Brianna and others, or age limits for certain places. I don't mind adults taking risks if they want, but it's again, it's all about a dialogue. It's all about the three of us talking and inspiring conversations that should happen to change things in the present, the future. And if there's historians out there that want to crap all over baseball, I welcome that too, because I think there's justified reasons to do that. So we just want to start the conversations, let people take it where they want to go. So we're excited that you're with us today.
Well, thank you so much. This has been, really awesome. I'm glad to really be on the show and, talking about this situation. I just, I think here in America, there comes a time when, we really need to, come together and address issues like this. Because with these billion-dollar companies, they pretty much sweep it under the rug. For someone who worked at one, I got to see that firsthand. Pretty much like every day working in the front office.
Well,
You know
we appreciate your openness, and that's what our guest hosts are doing. They're
right.
inquiring and they're signing on to be part of this with us, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, Jerome. So earlier you mentioned that when you were a player, you once hit a foul ball that struck someone in the shoulder. If you feel comfortable, could you walk us through that incident and what you were feeling at the time, how you feel about it looking back?
Yeah, so I was playing, against Mississippi State. I was facing a full count, got a fastball, fouled it off down the, third base line, went into this curved basically, it curved like almost like a boomerang, and it hit a spectator right in her shoulder. So right in her that was her right shoulder. And of course, hearing her, squeal and scream was something that that doesn't leave you. So the umpire had to call time. I'm looking over there to seeing like, oh my god, like what just happened? Because when you're playing, like you don't think about things like that, per se. Like you just don't think about stuff like that, And then to see that happen really it rattled me. Time was called for a good amount of time. I want to say 3 minutes in real time. That's a long time going stepping out of the box to tend to her and making sure she was okay. And then now I have to go back into the box facing a full count. Obviously, I don't want to strike out. I want to get on base. I want to compete. But how do you battle through a situation like that, knowing that you just potentially, injure somebody and now that person could have like a broken shoulder or whatever. The ball is leaving the velo, off these balls are coming off at like 110, 120 sometimes. And I played when it was the old metal bats. So it's not that like the metal bats now. I mean, these were the loud pingy ones, so that ball screaming, off the bat. So that mindset and, having to talk to my coach, down on third base line and, having him to try to calm me down and get me back into the zone took a while in that 3 minutes of that time, And obviously going to the box, having to battle that, striking out, obviously, and just not really right, the rest of the game. I mean, you're just constantly thinking about it, just never leaves you, and hearing that scream, it just those things suck. So yeah, from a former player perspective, that was really interesting. Very, very interesting to say the least.
Jerome, thank you for that. That was very important, and there's others that had those experiences, and we're going to encourage those experiences to be shared, and that's what this is. And being part of this is a great contribution, and I'm sure it'll motivate others to join us. So we want to thank you again
Thank you.
And Brianna, thank you again for today. And we'll do it again soon, everyone.